Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fourth webinar. I am Danielle Kohler, and this is John Kohler, and we are joined by two of our absolute all-time best-selling authors, William Hazelgrove and Rebecca Bruff. Very excited to talk to both of them today about what they did. Two fiction novelists, I should say as well. One, we're going to talk about a YA book or maybe middle grade. The other one, historical fiction. So might be some different approaches there. But yeah, we're excited to get started. And unfortunately, my dad wasn't going to make it today. I thought I was going to be able to take over just on my own, but he made it. So we're going to have to put up with him again.
I mean,
There
what
he
are you going to
is.
do? I'd like to, I never did learn how to be quiet, but look,
Yeah.
I'm excited because both of these authors, and we were just talking about this, that, we're going to talk about the marketing, but the interesting thing is you have to start with a good book. And I just wanted to urge all of you folks listening, if you're working on a book, etc., work with editors, work with whoever you can, and readers and friends, other authors, etc., to make it as good as it can possibly be. Because guess what? I've had usually young authors who said, well, I know the book needs work, but I'm really good at marketing, so I'm going to sell a lot of books. You got to start with a well done book. So, okay, I made my piece here. Why don't you go ahead and let's get going, Danielle, with these
All
two
right.
Julio people.
Okay, we're going to start with William Hazelgrove, who's the author of multiple books, both fiction and nonfiction. We're going to be focusing on one of his most successful books today, The Pitcher, which is a young adult baseball book, which came out all the way back in 2013, but is still selling hundreds of copies a month to this day. So William, do you want to give us your elevator pitch for The Pitcher?
Okay, I'll give you my escalator. Yeah, this is a very simple story, and one might add too, the best stories are simple stories. Um, sort of immigrant, young Mexican American kid who lives across the street from a broken down World Series pitcher, and he needs a coach to make the high school team, and so this sort of lost his way old pitcher does that. He becomes his coach. And there's a lot of themes of immigration. It's also, I should probably tell you that when I first wrote it, I wrote it in the third person. And I was like, wow, this isn't working. This is really boring. I got the idea from this is a quick elevator pitch, but I got the idea from my mother-in-law's house in Naples, Florida, where Mickey Lolich lived across the street, and he would sit in his garage all day drinking beer, and he actually pitched in the World Series. So I sort of melded all that together, but then again, I started third person, and it was just a bore, just totally boring. And so I started over, and I grabbed, this voice of Ricky, who's the kid in the book. And by the way, I'm not a YA novelist, and I'm not even a big baseball guy at all. But this voice carried it, and then also like, oh yeah, I've got the voice, I've got the story. 50 rewrites later, it was the pitcher. So yeah, so that's really the pitcher story.
And the thing about it is it's the dynamics between the people is so great. That broken down, World Series pitcher, how the kid kind of brings him out and gives him life, and the mother and the World Series pitcher, and just the whole thing. It's a fabulous, really wonderful story. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a cool book.
All right. And then Rebecca Dwight Bruff is the author of Trouble the Water, which came out in 2019, has won multiple awards, and also continues to sell hundreds of books a month. Both of these I see on our bestsellers list every single month. So, Becky, your turn. What is your elevator pitch for Trouble the Water?
Thanks. So Trouble the Water is historically based. It's a historical fiction piece that I've researched really carefully after learning the story, kind of a undertold, unsung hero story about a man named Robert Smalls, a great American hero that most people have never heard of. I live in Beaufort. I had visited Beaufort in 2013. Took a quick tour and heard about this extraordinary man who had been born enslaved here in the Civil War. He liberated himself and about 15 other people in just an impossible, larger than life escape. But he went on to become a congressman and enacted some legislation that includes what could be honored as the beginning of public education. So I discovered the story. I was captivated by it. Not a historian, but in learning about this man, I learned a lot of history. So I credit him with moving me to South Carolina, teaching me a lot of American history, and giving me the opportunity to share his story with a lot of folks.
One of the things that I always brag on you about, Becky, is how you did so many events at churches, in particular Black churches, as I recall.
Some, yeah.
Some.
All kinds of churches. Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mention, if anyone has questions at any time, there's a Q&A button at the bottom, and I will be shifting through them. So feel free to answer or ask your questions there.
Right.
Yeah.
But to piggyback a little bit on John's comment, my vocational training was as a pastor, as a Methodist minister. So I had entree into some churches. And the story is a story. It's not a story of faith or about faith, but it includes faith. So that was kind of a door opener, John. That's how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was unusual, you know. But Danielle, go ahead. Let's get started with some questions.
All right. Well, obviously, as everybody saw from your sales numbers, you've both been extremely successful. So if we just jump straight to the chase, what would you say has been your most successful marketing push? Did you DIY it? Did you get a publicist? What's the one thing that you think was the most successful?
Wow.
Do you want to
I
go?
know we're cutting to this chase today.
Jump in there, William.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, actually, you have to do everything. I can't point to anything that's particularly that strong. Once upon a time, Facebook, it was great, depending on your demographic. But you have to do paid ads. Just going out there and posting, the metrics are terrible. So nobody's going to see your stuff. But if you pay them, they'll see your stuff. And you have to pay them a lot. You can pay them $5 a day, and suddenly you'll get the counts up. With the picture,
hold up. This is important what you just said. Because what I heard was, if you're doing paid advertising, whether it's Facebook or Amazon or Google, that you've got to put some money out with the idea that you're probably not going to make much until your book reaches that point where it starts to sell. Is that accurate?
Yeah, because what you're not actually after sales, you're after pings, and you're after creating synergy. To get somebody to go buy the book, that's almost a different process. But what you got to do is you got to build that buzz. And so,
Okay.
If you use Facebook, I highly recommend you pay. You do some sort of, they're real simple ads too. You can just promote one of your posts and go. Twitter, I use that extensively. And Twitter, crazy about Twitter, even still, is that you can use the @ symbol and link into other people, like my book Titanic, or the picture. I can link up to baseball sites. I can link up to Titanic sites. And again, it pushes it out. You get it out there, and there's no guarantee sales. Now I'll jump to a third thing, which is Amazon. You can use Amazon. The picture I did not, but the metrics of Amazon are pretty good if you decide to pay. You don't have to pay a lot. You can pay $100 a month. And what it'll do is it'll take their little ads and blast them out into the interest groups that you designate, or you have them designate, and that you will see clicks, that you'll see ads. You'll see real time. Oh, wow, 20 people bought the book, or whoever. So that's a very real, in real time Facebook or Twitter or blogging. That is more, developing the buzz, getting it out there. And so, in answer to the circling back around, answer the question of what really kicks it over, speeches are good. I do a lot of speeches. I do paid speeches. I don't give any freebies. I do occasionally, but so
you did it first. You
yes.
You did speeches for free at first.
At first I had to kick in the door and crawl in and do one. And now I make them all pay heavily. But that too, you're giving a speech to maybe some people in a library, maybe there's 10 people there. Well, guess what? Oh, I know. Go to Vistaprint and get the little cards. They're like the size of a business card, and just have it the cover. I had thousands of these with the picture, and
you can do bookmarks also.
Right, you just give them out to everybody. You can put your website on there, whatever. And actually, I live in Chicago area, and so there's a baseball stadium very close to me. So, one summer I would just, it sounds really pathetic, I stood outside the stadium as people were going in. I just handed out thousands of cards, the baseball cards. Who knows what it did? You just don't know. And then once you start doing speeches, you develop your mailing list. And that is very important. Just say, hey, I'm going to do a raffle. All you got to just put in your email, and then they'll give you your email. And then once you have it, you have it. I have about 2,700 people on my mailing list, which I built from speeches. And again, you don't know, are they book buyers? Are they not? Who knows? But you just kind of do it all at once.
Okay, very good. Becky?
That's inspiring, William. I want to do some of that and do it all at once. A couple of things. I've not done the Amazon ads, and I don't do Twitter. I've kind of played a little bit with Facebook ads. The thing that has been the most, there are two things that kind of intersect that have been the most helpful to me, and it's not anything I did. It's just getting really, really lucky, kind of. One is that word of mouth is huge. People love discovering a story, and this story began and ended in Beaufort, and we have a lot of tourists, lots and lots and lots of tourists. So they take the tours just like I did. They hear the story about this person, and they walk by a bookstore and they see the book. Our booksellers are really generous. They're excited about sharing the story. Our tour operators love sharing the story. And so I did in part what William said. I made some bookmarks. The book is on audio, and so there's a QR code to the audio, so they get a visual. I give these bookmarks to the tour operators and people in the bookstores and things, but they'll see the cover of the book. They have the QR code to the audio. It takes them to the Amazon page where they can buy, print or electronic copies. I don't know how to measure that, but I think it's not a very expensive approach, and I suspect it's paid off a little bit. The other thing is that, and this may be true for William's books as well, but people like talking about the dynamics in this book. And so the word of mouth with book clubs has been really significant, really significant. And I was super fortunate. I mean, it was kind of a mixed thing, but because the book came out right before COVID, had about 6 months of saying yes to everything, like William did, everybody that called, every church, every school, every library. And I said yes to all of those. And then COVID, and it kind of locked up. But I was with some group that was doing a giveaway online, and happened to give away to a brilliant woman who used that connection and that book to create an online book club. So she has supported lots and lots of authors and created sort of this online community, and authors support one another. It's been a, both the online support and the local literary support has been pretty remarkable. So I think it goes back to what you said, John, having a good story that people can engage in, they want to talk about, and then just like William said, finding the ways to create exposure.
I agree. I agree.
I
Daniel,
did,
we
I
have
did
some
see on your,
questions.
oh yeah, I was gonna say, I did see on your website, you do have a book club discussion guide, which is a great tool for any authors that want to get into book clubs to just have that up on your website so they can grab it. We've got lots of questions. Well, one person is asking, can you share the name of the woman with the online book club? I don't know if you want to share that or.
All right, I'm
No,
happy
no,
to.
no, no. That's like
Okay.
giving away an
You know
age.
what? People can direct message me. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One person is
And,
asking
and there are
about
others. There are many, but that's for readers and authors to support one another it's just generous. It's the right thing to do, and it, rising tide lifts all boats.
yeah. One person is asking, and I think this was William when you were talking, if you worked with an agency for speaking engagements, and like if not, how you find, and this applies to both of you, how you find places to do speaking engagements.
Sure, I'll jump in real fast. No, I don't work with the Speakers Bureau. One of these movies gets made, then I'll do that, because they don't want to deal with you unless they can get a big fee. But you don't really need them. Again, I live in the Chicagoland area, so there's lots and lots of libraries. And they're looking for content. They're looking for people who can pull people into their library. And so I started with the picture. And as John said, those were early speeches, and those were pretty much, okay, sure, I'll give a speech. But quickly I moved into, all right, I'm going to charge you for that. And they didn't bat an eye. So how do you do that? Basically, you find out who's the head of programming at any library or historical association. And then you send them an email and say, hey, this is my book, here's my presentation. And then, if they bite and you do a program, all these librarians talk to each other constantly. And so the referral synergy is very, very strong. Once you start, they go, oh, this Hazelgrove guy, he's pretty good. You should book him. And so then that kicks in. But also saying that, I've got all these librarians on my mailing list too. So I just pester them about once a week with an email, saying, hey, I've got this program, this, and it's on, if you look at my website, it's right there, programs. And they're all tied to my books. So, and I do have writing programs as well, because, early on, it's all I was doing. So I think you don't need the Speakers Bureau. You can just go out and and heck, if there's some libraries around you, just go right into the library and say, hey, I'm looking for the person who's in charge of adult programming. And they'll be like, what do you want?
William, that you have jumped from novels to nonfiction to historical stuff, which is like perfect for giving talks, etc., because it's so obvious what you're writing about, and the fact that you're an expert. It's harder, and Becky, I'm going to ask you this question. It's harder when you have a novel, and so we're always talking to authors about trying to pull out that nonfiction book. Like, what is it about it? Well, I mean, and to your book, Becky, what was it? Obviously, the guy was real. It's a true story, fictionalized, but how did that work for you?
I mean, really similarly, people, if somebody shows up at the library event, they all know somebody in some other organization that's, the other person's program chair or whatever. People talk to each other. And I'm not sure it's completely about the subject matter of a book, William's nonfiction, my fiction. I think what people engage in and find compelling, and when we have an opportunity to speak and to be in conversation, we kind of ignite this. But nearly everyone is curious and intrigued by the dynamics between people and what makes things happen and what makes people click. And what I was intrigued in when I was working on this story was were all these relationships among the various characters. I mean, historically, I was really intrigued by the impact of a historical event from over 150 years ago and how it still has something to teach us now. Why history matters, like what William's doing.
Yes.
So kind of teeing up those kind of ideas and questions, have people leaning in. They want to talk about that. They want to explore those things. And they talk about it in their book club or their neighborhood or their church or their junior high school or all the places.
But here's the thing, what this just pointed out to me is that whether it's fiction or nonfiction, Williams nonfiction, that yours was fiction, you both had to become expert in the material. And I think that's a key if you're going to give talks, if you're going to be invited to do different things. Hey, I want to drill through these questions. We've got like 11 questions that people are asking. And so short answers. Okay, kids. Okay, here we go. Number one, Bill, this is for William. This is for you. When do you start setting up events? When do you start that, with a new book, for instance? When do you start?
Well, I used to wait till the book came out. I've got a book coming out, Dead Air, the night Orson Welles' Terrified America in October. And I've probably done maybe two or three of those programs already, just because, I'm like, I don't have to wait for the book to come out. I say, hey, it's coming out on this date. So you really don't have to wait. Once you feel like you've got your material down, just go for it.
Okay, I agree. Susan Keller wants to know, is the picture appropriate for a precocious 10-year-old obsessed with baseball?
Yes. There's 600 or 700 reviews on it on Amazon. One of them is there's some bad language in here. My response to that is go watch anything else on television. Believe my book's very PG. So it's a great story. If he's precocious, meaning he's really highly intelligent, I think he can get it. Jim Coolidge is asking, you both have a very large number of reviews on Amazon, etc. How did you do it? How'd you get those reviews?
One of the things that I began doing early on that I continue to do, that I think has added to that, I always send an email to whoever has hosted the event the next day, and I tell them why I'd love being with them, and I just share some of the unique things about that opportunity. But I also say, I know some of your readers use Amazon, they like to write reviews, here's the link, and please
make it easy. Make it easy.
Yeah, just make it easy. Please, when you communicate, to the folks that came to your event with your next email, just let them know how much I appreciate it. And this is how they can do that. So kind of.
I have a question I want to throw in there. When you're at an event, how do you get people to sign up for your newsletter? Is it literally a list and a pencil, or you give them the QR code and that signs them up?
Is this for me?
Yeah, either of you.
Okay. All right, I'll just jump in real quick. I always say, I make an announcement before the speech, and I say, you know what, I'm having a raffle, and I raffle a book off every month. It won't be at this time, but I'm going to do it. And you don't have to do anything else but give me your email, and I'll contact you. And
smart.
And then they're off to the races. And I have a stupid little pad with a pen, and I always say this very high-tech pad and pen. Just
it's a freebie. I mean,
perfect.
Why not, right?
My line is, it's free, and we're in America. Where else can you get free stuff? We're done.
Hey, Becky, here's one for you from Deborah Hufford. Becky, do you feel there's an ROI for audio?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, there has been. I didn't know anything about audio. I happened serendipitously, a friend had a friend who's a voice actor, and he was great. And I have discovered that people really like audio, and it's been a strong seller.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, William? I mean, have you done a lot of audio, some what?
No, well, the publishers all do that now, but for the picture, it's the only book I did the audio where, like Rebecca said, there was this guy who had a small studio and he was very, very much like, hey, this should be an audio book and this and that. So I did do that one. And, but no, in that sense.
This is a question from Charles Messina for both of you. He says, so far I've won 4 awards. Do awards matter? If so, how do you promote your book using awards?
I don't know. I don't know that they matter heavily to readers. I know that as a reader, when I walk into a bookstore and I see something that's been acknowledged or has a sticker on it, it kind of catches the eye. I will tell you, when I'm in schools, kids are super excited that I have stickers on the book. They think that's the best. But I haven't found a way to really leverage awards. It is affirming, and people like to include that when they make an introduction. It kind of validates to the attendees that they've come to hear something that someone else has thought to be valuable.
Yeah. What about you, William?
Well, the picture got the Junior Library Guild Award.
That was a big deal.
You remember that?
Good deal.
JLG.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah, which was pre-publication. And then all of a sudden, it went into all the libraries. And then when I was at the ALA, they had the ALA, American Library Association book list conference here in Chicago. It's like every other year. I went to that and with the picture. And I was getting out those little cards and it's all librarians, just a mecca of librarians. And they're all coming by going, oh, JLG, that's good enough for me. And they just grab the card for me. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving. In that, I heard Danielle say, oh, young adult. I wrote it as an adult novel, just so you know, but it jumped the fence between that. But in that world of the young adult, JLG is just gold. I mean, once you get that, and my other books have all been literary guild selections, military book club selection, history book club selections. And those all carry to these big book clubs and all that. But that JLG was a very, very powerful thing. So in that instance, it did a lot.
Here's another one from Glenn Miller. Do you ever give discounts on your ebooks through Amazon, BookBub, or other sites? Are these effective? Is that done individually or through Kohler? And by the way, we've done many of them, but the author has to do the initial, try to get into BookBub, et cetera. It's a pain in the butt because they take like 15 or 20% of the submissions. But what do you guys think, Becky? I mean, is the 99-cent ebook deal, is it worth it?
I couldn't tell you. I've not explored that.
See,
I'd love to know.
There we go.
I'd love to know.
William?
Yeah. Okay. I'll be the whore here. Yeah, John's, when we were doing the picture, we did a free giveaway on the ebook for a while. Not long, it was very restricted. And I think it was like a week. And, it was just crazy. It was just like, I don't know, 50,000 downloads or something nutty like that. Saying that, that was sort of my guerrilla days of marketing. Now I sell $36 hardcovers and nobody touches that. No, you can't touch those prices. And no, the ebooks are $20, and I'm in Barnes and Noble a lot. And I will tell you that when people want a book, they don't care. That Al Capone in the 1933 World's Fair was a very expensive book. It retailed out $37 at the counter. People never ever blinked. I want it. And I live in Chicago. Al Capone is gold. I could walk into Barnes and Noble with 100 Al Capones and walk out with none. So I do not believe in selling by price. But if you're going to do something like that, yeah, just go right at it. And I mean, your book, Rebecca, sounds fairly highbrow, so I wouldn't think that would be a
William, here's what we tell authors now when we get to that point, because I always say, look, it's not our choice. We could do it if we wanted to, but this has got to be the author's choice, okay? Because
right.
we ain't going to make any money. I mean, we're going to be splitting about 40 cents per ebook on a sale. It's purely for marketing to try to win an Amazon #1 bestseller, new release,
Right.
that kind of thing. So it's a tough one. Danielle, should we keep rolling with these questions?
Sure, but I actually had a question on my list that Becky touched on, and I was actually thinking about William, but I'm glad that you said something, which is getting into schools. It sounds like you were successful getting into schools. How do you approach schools? Who do you contact? How do you go about that?
Again, I don't know. It happened the other way around. Because the schools closed right after COVID started, schools were virtual the next year. And the summer after that, the Beaufort School District, the library organization, and the Pat Connery Literary Center worked together to get a big grant for books. And they dropped lots and lots of books, various age levels, all over Beaufort County. And Trouble the Water was one of those. So that kind of landed in the hands of families and in students. And then one of our educators at one of the high schools called and said, we'd like for our, I think it was their advanced, maybe AP English or AP History, wanted to look at it. And then somebody at one of the Montessori schools heard about it. The other thing that has happened, again, because it's Beaufort and it's a local story, even elementary schools have asked me to come and talk to kids, not about the book, but about the character, about Robert Smalls himself. And so I just, I kind of changed the audience participation plan, and we talk about this man and his story and his courage and what that means. And there are volunteers or aides or librarians in the rooms, and then they share it with their colleagues. So that's how that's happened.
Cool.
Do you
William,
charge for those events or no?
I don't usually charge if it's a nonprofit or school. If somebody says that they have, funding that they're supposed to use for that, then that's awesome. But if it's local, if I can get it on my calendar, I want to share stories like that with kids. I did a friend here was visiting somewhere in North Carolina and came back with a bookmark from one of the colleges there, and somebody on the faculty had chosen Trouble the Water as, one of the 5 books they listed on their annual school bookmark list or whatever that was. So so it's finding its way into some educational institutions, but I haven't pursued that.
Yeah, William, I think I recall you actually going into high schools, etc., with some of your books. Is that correct? Me? Yes.
Oh, yes. With the picture especially, I did that because it lent. I suspect a lot of people who buy this book are Mexican American descent, Latino, because it is that kind of story too. And actually, I went to a big high school in Chicago that was very, very heavy Latino, with about 300 books, and did it in conjunction with a bookstore. And boom, it was great. Now, the narrative nonfiction, no, that usually doesn't happen with schools. That's more, the libraries, historical associations, and all that. So, but fiction, I think, lends itself very well to going into schools. I do.
Here's another question. Have either of you done Goodreads giveaways? How do you get more coverage reviews on Goodreads? And let me give a little aside. As I understand it, Goodreads is now owned by Amazon, and some of the giveaways that I've seen were like limited to 100 Amazons, and then the publisher has to do that. Whereas in the past,
the ebook, the physical book, I think
the ebook, excuse me, whereas in the past, you know, the author would say, okay, I'm going to give away 5 print books, but as many people as could get on that list, you know, that's where the payoff is they're like, ooh, I want that. So have either of you done anything with Goodreads and recently in the past year or two?
Yeah.
I,
Well,
yeah, I did too, or kind of early on. It was like a 8-book giveaway or something, but I did paperbacks. I like the idea of getting hard, print copies in people's hands. And, and then they send the names and the addresses, and I just put them in the mail, wrote a little note. I don't know if I don't know if it's a great marketing experience. It's just a way to connect with readers that are interested in a story like that. So.
As I understand it, the whole idea for doing it for authors is that, yeah, you're going to have that list, you know, of 5 or 100 people with the ebooks who are going to get it. But the idea is that there's thousands of Goodreads people who are signing on saying, ooh, I want that book.
Right. And
So
on Goodreads, they can kind of identify, here's a book I want to put on my reading list.
Exactly.
So it reminds them to go back to it at some point.
Yeah, and William, that's kind of what you were touching on earlier. So what have you done anything with Goodreads?
yeah, every book I do a Goodreads giveaway, usually about 25 bucks. And yes, I mean, I agree with Rebecca. You're not quite sure what it's doing. It seems to me it's changed. It used to be free, now it's and then of course you have to kick up the bucks, so the publisher does. And before, I would get, a lot of people wanting the book, and then they put it on their to read list. My feeling is, though, it's just not as powerful as it was. I don't see a lot of those people reviewing the book where I did before. A lot of those people who would get the book. Now I don't see a big payoff from the reviews, whereas before there was. So, but it's an easy thing to do, so I would encourage doing it.
Okay, William, here's one for
Uh-oh.
you. For William Hazelgrove, how did you get your book in front of movie producers?
Oh, that's a great one. Well, we'll talk about
book. Start by writing a good book.
I say you have to write a good book, and
sell
then
a bunch of copies, get awards.
Get their
Right.
attention.
All that stuff. All right, so the picture, I'll just talk about that one. I was a publishing event in Chicago, and this guy said to me, I know a guy in LA who is a producer. And so I sent the book to him and said, this is a really good book. You should read it. He read it and was like, wow, this make a great movie. And then we were off to the races. He wrote the script and all that stuff. Saying that, Real Santa was optioned by the producers of Modern Family probably about 5 years ago. And that came off of when it came out, and John can attest to this, we got killer reviews on it, just amazing reviews. And it was a star review in book list. And I pushed that thing out big time with paid subscription drives, which is, the email marketing platforms like BookBub and all that other stuff. And this producer, who was one of the producers at the time of Modern Family, saw it, and she wanted to produce it independently. So she paid up the option, and she could never get it produced. Producers are like cats. If you don't feed them, they go away. So, and there's lots of them in Hollywood who don't have a pot to piss in. So you have to find a producer who can get it money, can get it produced. But I mean, in a way, you don't care because you'll get that option money, but that's never big money. And so, and then the other books that have been Madam President and Real Santa again, and a book called Morristown, those all came kind of the same way, where somebody read it, they got interested, I got a call, or the movie rights available, and yes, and then boom, so there's no real tried and true way. But let me just say this, in this form, I get calls all the time from people saying they want to make the picture into a movie, and it's always a scam.
Exactly.
the picture has sort of a higher profile than a lot of these books because just, it just does. And so they glom onto that. And they're like, here's the contract for 300,000 from TriStar, you sound like you're from the Philippines. Oh no, I'm right here in LA, and all that stuff. But so be very, very circumspect. Hollywood does, if they do come looking for you, you'll know, because it'll be a very low key thing. Somebody comes and says, we'll give you 100 grand fee, but it's total BS because it doesn't work that way. You have to get the financing in place. And that's when it all squeezes down to a very few amount of people.
Yeah, we've seen, even with one of my children's books, I've had these so-called producers. We think that this will really go. It's a children's book. Yes, but we think it will make a great movie, and it's just, there's a lot of crap scammers out there. I agree with you.
Very much.
And I also agree because, the times when I've passed on to, or since we don't handle movie rights, I would hook the author up with this person. It's never going to be a producer at first. It's going to be one of the production houses. They have specific people who are looking at books, etc. Like you said, it's low key. So,
Right.
Anyway, Danielle, do you have another question there?
Yeah, we always like to ask, what did you spend either time or money on that you would not recommend? It was just kind of a waste of time. You wouldn't suggest it.
Well, I'll go there. I worked briefly with a publicist, a lovely person. It was a wonderful person, not a great fit for what I was able to do at the time. Some other things happened in other arenas of my life, and so it was just bad timing. I don't know if I would do that again, but in retrospect, that wasn't a great investment.
We've heard that a lot, actually. A lot of our authors end up doing it themselves.
Yeah, and I think it is like a lot of other collaborations. If it's a good fit, if the timing's right, things are great. That wasn't the case in my experience, but it had a lot more to do with what was going on in my personal life at the time. So,
William, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Rebecca said. The whole PR game is very fraught with peril. They charge you enormous amounts of money, and frankly, they don't know what they're doing either. They're, I mean, they're going uphill. I mean, I was on World News Tonight for the Titanic book. I should talk about that. And that came from a press release. Okay, so the University of Titanic, my book came out about 2 years ago, 160 Minutes to Race to Save the RMS Titanic. It sank, just spoiler. And so what happened was I wrote a press release on this anniversary. It's like $100 to do it. It's, 20, there's one called 24/7 press release. Very easy to do. And I just you shoot it out there, and it went out there. And I was actually on another Zoom call, and I got a call from a producer at Warden this night. He's like, "Hey, listen, we're doing a segment. We want to interview you." I said, "Okay, sure." We did it right then. It was a 4-minute piece. You can go on now, ABC. Just put in ABC, my name, or Titanic, it'll pop up, and it was great. It was just this amazing hit, and a zillion people saw it, and believe me, a PR person could not have pulled that off. So I think I haven't actually put out money for a PR person like Rebecca did. I did put out money once for a listing it's called the Radio and TV Guide or something like that. I can't even remember the name of it. And it was some serious cash. It was like $300 or $400 or $500. And you got a few interviews off it. I mean, I do a fair amount of radio, and so, but it wasn't life-changing at all. So I think the moral of the story of all this whole thing is, do it yourself. Do it yourself. You're your best advocate, and you won't get ripped off. So.
Here's a question. Is there a method for promoting to book clubs other than word of mouth? Is there any systematic way that you all have? Becky, you want to start? Any ideas?
I don't have a systematic way, because it's kind of, that ball is already rolling pretty well now. But there are lots of, for folks that are using Facebook or Instagram, there are tons of book clubs out there, and most of them, invite authors to post something about their books or about their events or that sort of thing. But I don't have a systematic approach to that. I should. I don't.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
William, thoughts?
Well, and I would totally back up Rebecca on that, because book clubs are impossible to market to. There's just no aggregate center for them. And you'll have all these people, oh, we're the online, blah, 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 blah. Extremely difficult to nail it down. It's like water, it slips through your hand. It's very hard to find a way to approach them, because these book clubs, it's not centralized. They all talk and they go, oh, well, maybe we'll do this book. I mean, I've done a fair amount of book clubs, and people go, oh, do you do a book club? Sure, I'll do a book club. And I go do them. But in terms of being able to drill into that as a market, no, it's not centralized that way. It's
Maybe
all
better advice would be to make yourself accessible, but not necessarily market to them. Like you've got a page on your website about it.
right,
That's it.
exactly. Just sort of, like, all right, speeches. And invariably at the end, somebody will come and go, hey, I'm with the blah blah organization. Are you would you be interested in doing a speech? Sure. Or I've got a book club. Would you come? Are you local? Yeah, sure. Let me know. I'll show up. So yeah, it's very, in my experience, it sounds to me like Rebecca's had much more success at this than I have. But invariably it's, Chicagoland based, something like that for me,
Another question for both of you. Did you use a web designer to design your website? Or let me stretch that out a little bit. That's the first part. And then how important is your website, your author website, in terms of keeping it up and et cetera, in terms of all your marketing?
I attempted to do my website solo early on and discovered that I needed some support with that. I had a friend who had a young adult college student who was gifted, and that kind of took it to the next level. And then a few years ago, worked with a local social media group that really cleaned it up for me. So I'm pleased with it. It's platform is Wix, and I'm able to make edits and that sort of thing on my own fairly easily. It's not it's nice and clean. It's not difficult. It's not real sophisticated, but people connect through it. If people hear the title of the book and see my name, they know that they can get hold of me that way. And that goes back to the newsletter question. There's a form there where people can opt into a newsletter. So that's the only way I'd have really put together to create a mailing list. So I think it's valuable. It's not awfully expensive. It's exposure, and it is a professional look.
William, what do you think?
Yeah, mine's through the Authors Guild, which, if anybody is thinking about, I would highly recommend you join. And they have a web development section. You pay for it, but it's very good. It's connected to your profile at the Authors Guild, and I mean, my website looks like something like a carnival, but there's just so much stuff on it. But yeah, I totally agree with Rebecca. Totally critical in terms of people getting hold of you. I mean, that's how people get hold of me for speeches a lot of times. I'll get one of these little Author Guild, contact email. And then of course you put on all your reviews, put on all your media, put in all the places you're speaking, books that are coming out, deals. Frustrating because it's sort of a blank wall. You don't know what's anything's doing anything. You just assume that something's going on with it, but you have no idea. So the best, but then at times I will not update the event page, which is, when I'm speaking, and I'll get somebody in my speeches. You didn't put this on your page. I'm like, okay, sorry, I will next time. So people do look at it. So,
Yeah.
But Authors Guild is a good avenue.
Here's a question. I know this sort of sounds like a setup, but it's a question. How did each of you come to work with Kohler Books, and why? I guess the why is a big question. William,
Every day I think about that.
I think you came
Then I drink.
of Letitia through Savvy, right?
Yeah. Actually,
Your agent.
Good question. I was with a really big, in my first two novels, I wrote a book called Tobacco Sticks, which I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and it was based on my grandfather's Humane Center campaign in '46. And that book took off, and I ended up with John Hawkins Associate, which is a really, really big Manhattan agent. Problem was they're real jerks. And so I broke with them. I was like, I'm done with you. And then I kind of want some other Manhattan agents, and I was just like, these guys are all the same. And I'd written the picture, and I blasted it out. I put it on an email blast, shot it out everywhere to all these agents. And Letitia Gomez, who's in San Antonio, talk about far from New York, said, I love this book. I love this. That's, by the way, to all you authors out there, that is what you should hear from your agent. I love it. I love it because, anything else I can sell it? Not so much. I love it. And so then she submitted it all over the place and gave it to John, and John read it, and he was firing on all cylinders that day, and suddenly, he just boom. That's a brilliant book. It's the best book I've ever read. And, well, the rest is history.
Well done.
It's definitely don't regret that 1 minute. Rebecca, how did I don't recall how you came.
So I didn't have the experience of a jerk agent. I had one agent. I met Marley Rusoff here in Beaufort, and the same thing. She loved the book, and she connected John with you that summer after I had the manuscript ready. So
yeah, and by the way, if anybody doesn't know, Marley Rusoff is a pretty big deal. I believe she was the agent for Pat Conroy.
For Pat Conroy, for Cassandra King, his wife. Yeah, she represented, continues to represent lots of people, and she is exactly the opposite of William's early experience. She's warm and supportive, and just a champion for her authors. And by the way,
somebody earlier had a question. Were these hybrid deals or traditional deals? These are traditional deals. I mean, because everybody knows we do a lot of hybrid deals with new authors. Neither one of you was new authors at that point, and the level and the quality of the work, and plus the fact that you had agents, yes, required this, and we were really happy. That was kind of early on for us when you guys came aboard, because you make us look good. Danielle, you got any other hot shot questions over there, kid?
Yeah, when are you guys gonna bring us another book to work on?
Yeah, come on.
That's a great question.
They've moved on up. They've moved on.
No. There was a lot of intervening stuff going on. I'm collaborating with another author now for what I hope will be an interesting project, and working on some things individually, but it's early to even have those conversations. So we'll see. I mean, yeah, I'm not churning out the work the way William does.
Yeah, churn's a good word for sure. Well, actually, John and I were just talking about bringing Real Santa back, because that will be a movie. So there's that whole thing. John, can you take a big surge though? Like when that thing comes out in 2025, are you be able to handle that?
Listen, man, that would be the idea, because the book. Here's what happened. Real Santa came along. William was excited. We were excited. It's funny as hell. It's a great
Funny
book.
book.
Great characters, the dad, everything about it. And you know, and it's probably our fault, but it didn't do what we thought it should do. So guess what? It ended its term. We're going to bring it back. We're going to bring it back. And I think, you know, try to give it a push and a surge. And, you know, William, with your background, et cetera, I think we're going to give it some more life, man. And yeah, I mean, if it's coming out as a movie, that's awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it definitely will, because that's not with producers, that's with the production company. So, you know, Madam President's been hung up with the producers and all that stuff, but this is a whole different deal. So they're the ones that moved up the release date from 26. So yeah, you better, you know, crank up your brain pros.
William, have one more question about the pitcher. It says for William, outside of baseball and sports fans, what are the other directions you've gone to market the pitcher? You know, what are the things? And you mentioned some of them, standing outside the stadium. I mean, you know, getting books in people's hands,
Yeah,
going into high school.
Latinos at school, Latino high schoolers.
Yeah.
yeah. You know, I mean, I think I did do with the pitcher, I did a fair amount of subscription, you know, which is the book bub and all that sort of thing, to try and get into the general reading market. Certainly, you know, the baseball sites were the easiest, but you know, that didn't translate into book sales right away, because the pitcher is, you know, it's baseball, but it's really about, you know, losing your dreams and then finding them again. Or at least finding meaning. And that's really, you know, for Ricky, he wants to make the baseball team, but he's this Mexican-American kid with nothing. And then for the pitcher who's coaching him, he's lost his wife, he's sort of at a dead end, and then he finds meaning again. So, you know, I did push it into sort of a general market as well, as sort of hitting the baseball and the schools and such like that. And then, of course, you know, reviews really help that way. You know, they just do. If you get the trades to, which is Booklist, Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, Seven Breyer reviewed that book, John, at PW.
Gonna stop. We're just about at the end of 5 minutes. You had a lot of terrific reviews, as I recall. So did you.
Right.
I mean, that's, you know, do reviews help? Yeah, they do. Certainly trade reviews help more, but we also push endorsement quotes, as you guys know.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're going to end it. You two were fantastic. You have just helped a bunch of authors, trust me. I don't know, we got up to like close to 70 or something people who were on here. And we thank you. This is our 4th webinar. This will be on our website. We'll send out a note about that here soon. And, you know, and again, everybody who's out there, good luck. God bless. William, Becky, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure, for sure.
See you all later.
See y'all. Take care.